This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals?
Usually, yes.
Well, BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist.
Yeah, you can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online.
Yeah, a friend of mine's doing it. She said she reached out to them and they got back with her right away.
Yeah, I think it's great. You get to avoid the uncomfortable waiting rooms. You can do it from anywhere in the world, and there's all kinds of counselors to choose from.
Yeah, you'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room like you said.
There you go. And it's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available, which is very cool.
Oh, sweet. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today, so visit their website and use our promo code.
And what is that promo code?
MIF. That stands for Music is Funny.
Yes. So if you use our code, it gets you 10% off the first month.
Yeah, go to www.betterhelp.com/MIF.
And that's BetterHelp, HELP.
.com/myth. This podcast is also sponsored by Pure Spectrum CBD.
Yeah, CBD is a big thing right now. I mean, they sell it in gas stations. You can buy it, anywhere. And it's kind of an unregulated industry.
Yeah, I had a weird experience where I got some Delta 8 gummies and it was such a trip. It was not safe.
Right. If you go to Pure Spectrum CBD, you can trust these guys. They're from Colorado. They've been doing this for a long time. Everything's tested. They come from, I think it's a family farm in Colorado. So, CBD is great. It's great for aches and pains, all kinds of stuff.
Anxiety.
Yeah. And if you get it from Pure Spectrum CBD, you're not going to fail a drug test. You're not going to get high. It is pure CBD, just the medicinal qualities, and you can trust that.
Yeah, CBD is one cannabinoid away from THC, but it's not the psychoactive cannabinoid. So it's just all the healing properties of cannabis without getting high.
That part's kind of a bummer. But for those who don't want to get high, these guys are the one to go to get all of your CBD products. You can trust them. They've been around forever. And you can save some money with our promo code.
MIF10. So go to purespectrum.com/MIF10 to get 10% off all your orders.
And that's MIF, MIF 10. Stands for Music is Funny, but it's shorthand. So anyway, check out Pure Spectrum CBD. And now, on to the show.
Yeah, I would like someone should do how OnlyFans had a huge surge during the pandemic. They should go back to 1918 and see what the version of OnlyFans was back then.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright. That was weird. From the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro that you shall scroll past.
Listen, I was really excited about this interview because I'm a big YMH fan. Are you?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, your mom's house?
Yeah, we talk about all of that in the interview.
Josh Potter. There you are. Hey, Josh. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. This is my co-host and music partner, Jonathan Bright. We call him JB.
Nice to meet you, man.
What's up, JB? How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
Not too bad. Can you guys hear me okay?
Did we ask you how you are doing yet? How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I just didn't know if you could hear me or not. I have these earbuds in.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, cool.
It was really cool to meet you at the Comedy Store and hang out in the parking lot.
Yeah, how was your ghost tour?
Oh my God, it was so cool. JB didn't let me talk about it much, but it was so cool. And told me the story about how the police officers were chasing somebody up there and then they just disappeared.
Oh, I don't know all of the stories. You hear things, you float in and out and things like that, but I haven't gotten the rundown like that. And I started talking to someone and then you guys disappeared. I thought you were ghosts when you went up into the
We ghosted you.
into the bowels of the Comedy Store. So I didn't tag along. I stayed outside, but I haven't heard all the fun stories like that. I've heard about the mob and all that, but
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this with us. I'm a big fan of your podcast.
Oh, thank you very much.
I want to ask you, before we get into music and stuff, because why did you change it from the Roach Motel to the Josh Potter Show? Because I thought Roach Motel was kind of cool.
I did too. I liked it, and I changed it because there was a bit of a cease and desist sent our way. So I just was like, well, I'll just like kind of call it that, but I won't put it in iTunes or whatever. So
Yeah.
it was like a small legal thing, but it's we still kind of like refer to it as that, but just for selling purposes and things like that, I changed the name of it just to the Josh Potter Show, which is kind of what I wanted to name it in the first place, to be honest with you. But everyone thought that was too boring. And then when this happened, I'm like, see, we should have just did it that way in the first.
Same with my band. We wanted to come up with a cool name, but nothing was better than Raelyn Nelson Band.
It's just hard to come up with a band name or a show name that's not ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one that you can't like. You're like, it's kind of like getting a tattoo or something. It's like, am I gonna be cool with this in like 5 years or 10 years? You know what I mean? Because you want it to last as long as it can. You know.
Of course, a lot of that has to do with how good you are. Because I mean, the Beatles is a pretty stupid band name, and they did all right.
Yeah, I guess you can overcome things. Yeah, there's tons of stupid show names too and stupid band names. But it's almost like a personal thing. Like, do you think like John and Paul, when they say the Beatles, when they have to keep referring to themselves as the Beatles, do you think they enjoyed it? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I know you and I can look at them with reverence and things like that and be like, yeah, it's a dumb name, but look what they've done. But they have to live with the fact that they have to call themselves that for the rest of their existence.
Good point. But no, we changed the E to an A. Get it?
Get it? We're being funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so Josh, what's the first music that you remember loving?
My first favorite band was definitely the Beach Boys when I was like a little kid.
Yeah.
And it was because they were definitely on, it was purely because they were on Full House. And John Stamos was like the drummer in them. And I heard Kokomo or whatever. And I just was like obsessed as a little kid. And I remember my parents took me to a concert that they did at like a ballpark. And I don't know what collection I know that Brian was there, but it wasn't Brian Wilson. It was just everyone else but Brian Wilson. It was like
Mike Love.
I don't even know. Yeah, Mike Love was like the only real guy, I think, and maybe like Carl. But I mean, I was a little kid, so I didn't care. And you know, I had their like greatest hits and everything when I was little, and then I got into like, you know, Pet Sounds and I started smoking weed and stuff like that. So as I got older and everything, so I would say they were my first favorite band for sure.
Do you remember on Full House when Uncle Jesse became a rock star and put out that single?
Oh my God, of course. What was
It was like, if every word I say
Yes.
will make you laugh,
I'd like forever. Yes, it was Forever. That was the song.
Forever.
That's right.
And then
And
the
it
music
was,
video was all with his twins and shit. You don't know this show?
Right.
Yeah, I'm older than you guys, so it would have been a little weird
okay.
for me to be watching two young twins running. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it was like he had like an open shirt and it was like the wind
yeah.
blowing. And then he was like doing like you know how birthing photos, those like people do those like wild like photos where they like have a baby and they're like on a mountain with it or whatever. That's what the music video was like for Jesse and the Rippers.
Don't get me wrong, I was aware of it and openly mocking it, but that was my age group, you know. And his music, when he would come on, there would be clips, and of course.
But his character was huge in Japan. He went on tour.
I get if I was that age group.
That's right.
But have you guys gone back and watched those musical things maybe on YouTube now?
I'm gonna do it after this podcast. Are you kidding? I want to see it again.
Didn't sometimes
you guys should do a cover of Forever when you play out there.
I think we should.
Well, you know what we should do? A tribute night. A
I'm
John
writing it down.
Stamos tribute night. Since tributes are all the rage here, so instead of like AC/DC
He
or
has
the
one
Beatles,
song.
well, we'll play that 3 or 4 times. and
Okay.
maybe we'll play a new song. I don't know. But didn't Dave Coulier get to dance around in some of those band shots? I remember he'd be playing in the house sometimes, and
Oh my God, Dave Coulier. He was the stand-up comedian of the family.
Is
that
That's right.
Was he your first guy that you looked
He-
at? Stand-up
That's so funny. I'm just remembering this now. Like I remember in like 6th grade for the talent show, I straight up lifted like a 4-minute like Dave Coulier Well, it wasn't even Dave Coulier. It was like 4 minutes of what the hell was his character?
Oh, Joey.
Just Joey. Yeah, Joey, whatever. I did his act from Full House for an audition for the talent show in like 6th grade, and I bombed. And it was all his jokes.
Did you do?
I bombed with Joey's jokes.
Did you do the cut?
I didn't. I left that out because I thought that would be
Too obvious. Yeah.
like on the nose. But I did all the like. There was like a episode where he got like his big break or whatever. He got to be on television, and it showed like 3 or 4 minutes of his stand up, and I just lifted that basically and
The
did
Star
all of that.
Search
And
episode.
that's what it was. Star Search. Yeah.
So how weird was it for you guys when you found
Yeah,
out that Bob Saget worked so blue? I mean, I'm sure you
Oh
had
my
no
God.
idea watching that show and then seeing some of his stand up like, what?
By the time I figured that out, I was like, "That's cool." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, I think I was 18. I was like very young adult, like a big kid, basically, when I found out that he worked blue. And I just like watched as much as I could of it because I couldn't believe it that the dad.
It's hilarious.
Oh my God, it was like a shocking thing, you know?
It kind of made the show even
Nowadays. Oh yeah, no, I mean, and then when you think about it, you're like, how did he get away with that? Like, if you think about it with the internet and everything like that, there was no way you could play a dad like that and then be that way on the side, you know?
Yeah, I've never thought about that. He would have been canceled immediately after, or probably never would have got the gig. It was Shane Gilliston.
Right. They would have Shane Gilliston for sure. Because he was doing baby abortion, like anything you could think of. Sex with kids. I don't know. He was doing all this stuff. And pedophile stuff. And then he was the dad on Full House. It's why.
And I always liked him as the dad too, you know. I didn't have a dad, so
He was so good at that.
him. You know.
Oh, that's nice. That's adorable. He was, I mean, my dad was around. I had a dad and I have a dad. He's still alive. But he wasn't like that. Like my dad's like a foreign man. So he's a little different, but he is, you know, he still was there. So I wasn't necessarily like looking at Danny Tanner as my father.
Yeah, and actually, I had a great stepdad. I want to throw that out there. He's awesome. So Beach Boys.
Yeah, that's your first. So easing into your teenage years, I'm sure it changed a bit, like all of us young dudes do.
Oh yeah.
Where did you gravitate from there, and how did you get there?
My teenage years were during a time in music. I worked in radio too. When I turned 15, I started working at like the local like rock station. And at the time they were like alternative, you know, they were playing, they didn't know where to go. And then eventually like they were in this weird stage and they went into like, basically I call it cock rock. And they just started playing like, you know, Godsmack and, you know, Motley Crue, stuff like that, like shop rock stuff. But before that, it was like Nirvana and it was a lot of alt stuff. But I really like when I was 15, I started listening to like Stone Temple Pilots. I started listening to like Stained, Linkin Park. Like that was like, and I'm like, I look back on it, I go like, am I embarrassed by it? But I also am like, no, not really. I still like it and everything. Like I would go see those bands. You know, obviously both of the ones I just listed, their lead singers have passed, but you know, I loved all that kind of stuff, like trashy rock music, like growing up. And you know, I had like an emo phase for like high school. I listened to Brand New as my like favorite band, Taking Back Sunday, like all that stuff. Like people that like music would genuinely probably spit on most of my favorable taste. They would be like, oh God, like every lane I would go down, they'd be like, really? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. So I'm always like embarrassed to talk about my childhood music or like my teenage formidable years, you know?
Me too. I went the bubblegum pop way, so it's embarrassing to talk about.
Everybody in their teenage years, you just get whatever is shit. You're not searching it out. You just kind of get whatever's around and what you hear a bunch to start off with. You know, it was Kiss for me. And you look back on it, listen to the songs like, that's kind of silly. But every time one of them comes on, it reminds me of being like 12, sitting in the bedroom, looking at the album covers. You know, I'm not going to lose that feeling. Yeah.
No, for sure. It was like, I was riding around in my mom's like Astro van, listening to like Stained, be like, for my mother, like, you know what I mean? And she'd be like, oh God, she'd like roll her eyes and it'd be like, I'd be like, yeah, mom, fuck you. You know what I mean? I don't know. It would be so wild. Like, I'm sorry if I can't swear on this podcast. I should ask that. But
No, you have to swear. It's mandatory.
oh, okay. It's a rule.
So you're good now. We got the
Yeah,
way.
it was just funny. Like my mom driving my friends and I around listening to like angsty music. It was such a wild vibe. I can't imagine what she must have like thought or, you know, what parents, parents, they always think, I'm sure you said Kiss. I mean, that just reminds me of Detroit Rock City, like the movie when the kid has the Kiss album and his parents are like, that's the devil or whatever. My parents weren't that bad. They were more like, you have it pretty good.
Yeah, right.
So shut up.
What are you complaining about?
Exactly.
So wait, you said you started work at 15 at a radio station. What were you doing at the radio station? That's early.
I started out as a sales intern when I was in sophomore in high school, and then I was obsessed with the morning show. And it was like a 4-hour talk show where, they did comedy and they had interviews and stuff, and I was obsessed with it. It was like a local version of like Stern or whatever, Opie and Anthony. And so I remember I just wrote the producer an email while I was like a sales intern, and I was like, get me, I just want to like be there. I just want to see how the show works. I love the show. Can I like do anything? I'll do anything, whatever you want. And so he's like, yeah, come in and hang out. And I went there. I just sat down and watched them do the show for like the whole time and didn't do anything. And I thought that would be like it. But then I just was like, I'm going to show up tomorrow and do the same thing. And I just never like left. And then eventually they hired me as like a producer. And I was 16 at the time. I remember I had to get my like hours because summer had ended. I had to get my classes all shifted to the end of the day so that I could show up to school late because I was doing the morning show. And my guidance counselor like helped me out with it and everything. So I was doing like on air stuff like stunt boy shit, like I got shot with a taser. That was like the first thing I did on the air. And then a bunch of stuff that probably was illegal for like a minor to do on the, you know what I mean? Like no release forms and things like that. But I did, that. And then I would come up with segments like behind the scenes, and write bits and shit like that. So they started seeing like my talent in that. And then eventually I just got like hired full time, and I worked there on that show for the most part. There was like a moment where I jumped around, but I came back to that show eventually. So for 15 years I worked on that show. Wow. Until I was 30. Yeah, it was crazy. They're still there, those two guys, Fred and Reagan in Buffalo. They still show, and they've been on the air for like legitimately almost 50 years now. It's insane.
So while you're doing that, did you have designs on that as a career path? Like maybe I'll have my own, maybe get big like Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony, that kind of thing. Is that what you were thinking?
I thought that was going to be my whole life. Yeah, I thought I was going to do that forever. I thought like radio, I'm going to get a show, or I'm going to like work on a bigger show someday. And I like jumped around a little bit. I got a executive producer job in Cleveland, and I started doing like sports radio down there. They wanted me to do like a comedy element on sports radio. And then immediately they were like, we've screwed up. Cause like, I wasn't the kind of comic that they were looking for. It was spicier than they were anticipating. So they were like, this isn't helping us in any way. This is like ruining our legitimacy as a sports station. We want to like get the rights to the major teams. So you're going to fuck that up for us. So I was like seeing the writing on the wall, and I went back with the guys that I started with, and I started feeling like really stuck there because I didn't know where like radio is not like it shouldn't be dying with the way podcasts are going, but it is. Like if you put proper programming on radio, it could still be a thing, but nobody's investing in that, and it's cannibalized itself because of all the corporate aspects of it. But I was like, stand-up was starting to kind of surpass radio in terms of success stories for me. So I started like looking down that path a little more than the radio one.
Were you doing stand-up while you were doing the radio, or when did you dip your toe into those waters?
I started stand-up at 22. So I was about 5 years into radio already, 6 years maybe. I don't even know. Like, but I didn't even know how to do stand-up. Like I met local stand-ups from doing the show, and they were like, why don't you do this? And I thought, I'm like, I don't know. They're like, you should give it a try. And they showed me like where the open mics were and stuff like that. So I would say like 2007 was the first time I started trying stand up. And I remember the first show I got put on. My friend Matt Bergman, he's like a road dog out there. You might see him on the road sometime. He's got a dry bar special, hilarious guy. He was doing comedy for like a long time, and he was trying to like light a fire under my ass because I wasn't realizing you have to do it like every day or as many times as you can and during a week. And so he booked me on a show, and I was like, yeah, I'll do a couple sets and I'll come do it. And then so I did like 2 open mic sets, and then I had a set on this packed out rock club show that was like 300 people. And I bombed so hard, and everyone else did so good. So I knew it was me that I sucked. Like it wasn't one of those things like the crowd sucks or whatever. Like I knew I sucked. And I walked out into the alley afterwards, and I just puked my fucking face off. And I didn't get on stage again for another year. I like went to Europe and shit, like, and then with my cousin, and I was like, when I get back, I'm gonna really do it. And then I did. When I came back, like I did it like as often as I possibly can. And I could recognize then, you know, progression and getting better, and little things start to happen, you know. But eventually, like by the time my 30s came around, I was making more money doing stand-up than radio. So I was like, what am I doing? You know, I'm not going to stay doing radio, even though it was my whole life. Like it was a weird thing to stop doing because I had been doing it basically since I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
So
did you kind of
it was a weird thing to stop.
Did you kind of see the writing on the wall with radio as far as how it's going, and just looking around like, well, the Opie and Anthony's and Howard are done. There's not going to be any more of those.
Right. There was no more $1 million contracts. There was barely even 6-figure contracts. I started realizing it when they started heaping other jobs and titles onto me without giving me a raise. And they would be like, you would be in a room with another guy, and they'd be like, you're fired. You have his job now. And then if you complain, it's like they'll just flip flop it and be like, well, then you're fired and he gets your, you know what I mean? Like, what were you going to say? Plus I was like a kid basically. So I was just happy to have that job. I was like, I don't want to work at, you know, a restaurant with my dad or whatever, you know, so I'm going to stay here. I thought it was the right path, and that they would reward loyalty or what, you know what I mean? Like naive things like that. But then you remember it's a company and it's also failing. And then, you know, things get sold and things get transferred. I can't believe that the radio station that I worked at never changed formats. The morning show I worked on, we changed time slots to afternoons once, but the show for the most part stayed intact. There was never any talk of moving it because it was successful, or like getting rid of it or dissolving it. So and the fact that I did that for 15 years in like the same place is kind of an anomaly in that business. So
yeah,
I feel lucky.
This is in Buffalo?
Yeah, this is in Buffalo from like, I don't know, the year 2000 until, or the year 2003, I guess, until like 2017, like that period of time.
So were you getting out on the road doing comedy during that, or was it just basically kind of right around there?
Well, I was right around there for a long time, obviously very regional, driving around. But then, you know, I started getting more and more gigs, and I worked with Tom Segura in Buffalo in like 2013. And then he started taking me on the road as his career started propelling. Like when I first worked with him, you know, he was selling some tickets, but it wasn't, you know, anywhere near what it is right now. And, you know, he would be doing clubs or whatever. And he'd ask me, he's like, you want to come to this club? I'll be like, sure. And I'd go to like Orlando, or I'd go to, you know, Phoenix or something like that. And so I started getting out there a little bit more. And as his career rose, he like kind of brought me along. Like I only moved to LA because he gave me his entire 2017 tour as an opener. So I was like, wow. He's like, he goes, the caveat is you have to live in LA. And I was like, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't I do that? You know what I mean? That'd be basically like saying no to a career. So that's when I finally pulled the ripcord and left radio and moved out here to do stand-up as hard as I could, you know?
So it had to be weird. Like you just said, he gave you, you know, his 2017. Well, 2018 comes around eventually. So
yep.
Tom said it had to be a strange, you know, it's like getting to go out and open for AC/DC. Well, their tour's done. Now you're back to
open mics. Right. I mean, I had no sets. I had no sets in LA. No one knew who I was. I was trying to find my way, and I knew that was the thing all the way going in. You know what I mean? Like I had forecasted that I had to get a job. Like I got an office job. I had an office job for the first time in my life, which I couldn't believe I got. Like I have no qualifications. I have no college degree. I have an entire radio resume. And for whatever reason, I got this job. I couldn't tell you right now at all what the hell I was doing. But I managed to do that. And I felt like proud of that at the time. And I was like, look at that. I got a job. I'm like living here. I can't believe it. But yeah, no, I mean, there was no promises beyond 2017. There was no like in 2018 we'll have these dates or anything like that. But yeah, it was like doing theater tour and then getting back to LA and barely being able to get up at a bar show. And so I mean, I kind of knew that's the game though. You know what I mean? This isn't like I'm not one of these people that's like I need it in my youth. You know what I mean? Like that's not my brand. It's like I'm getting too old, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing this forever till I die. So it's like there's no real race. It's like I'm just along for the ride. Like when I die, that's the end of it. You know what I mean? Like so whatever happens between A to B is just the road, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that happens between musicians and comics who are anybody trying to make money off the arts. You're going to have, even if you don't get the big opening tour or whatever, you go out and play on the weekends and you got a room full of people who are like, yeah. And then Monday you go back to the warehouse and grind for another 4 or 5 days so you can get back out and play. And people think you're making money and they think it's just a weird, you have to get your mind around it or it will drive you crazy.
Oh yeah. And I mean, eventually, I don't know if it happens to you guys at all, but like, I became conditioned to the fact I'm like, if this is just how it goes, this is how it goes. You know, like I wanted to get better and I'll lay up at night and stare at the ceiling and have dreams and aspirations. But like at the same time, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? I never discounted that part of it. Like it's all like I still go to open mics. I'll still go to shitty clubs and do, an hour or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. In terms of like, I'm still doing it, and I'll never stop, even if it's a fire hall. If I go back to doing fire halls again for, $50 or something, I'm still performing now.
Yeah. I feel that way too. So, who were some of the, I want to let's back up just a little bit.
Back up just a little bit. Hey, real quick, no more mindful breathing into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
She teaches yoga and every now and then I can hear her going.
I know, I saw you look at me and I.
Mindful.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to me. I'm like, am I doing it?
Please, sir, no more mindful breathing.
No,
we're going to have to stop this right now.
He's making fun of me. Anyway, my question was, who were some of the first comedians that you remember loving? When did you first start getting into knowing it was an art, and when was that discovery and who was it? And you were like, yeah, I want to do that.
I don't know that I realized it was art, but Jim Carrey, I remember like when the trailer for Ace Ventura came out.
Yeah.
And my father and I were like watching television and I was, I don't know, 10, 9 maybe. And my dad, was watching it and we both laughed at like the same part in the trailer. And I was like, this guy, what's he doing here? Everyone's laughing because it was like nothing I've ever seen before. So I remember I just became obsessed with Jim Carrey as like a kid. And I'm nothing like he has no influence on me, I don't think in any capacity, like in terms of my kind of comedy. But like, I mean, that was the first time I was like, oh my God, I started going to school and like doing Jim Carrey and like people would laugh. And I was realizing like, even, I don't know what it was that made me realize it, but I remember I would make adults laugh. And I remember thinking that's really cool that like they're genuine, like it's almost like a cheat code or something, or like a way to break through where I didn't feel like a kid anymore if I could make an adult laugh. And so I wasn't like the class clown, but I was like always kind of striving to do that. Like when I would go to friends' houses and meet their parents or something, I would always kind of ham it up with the adults, you know what I mean? And that's when I started like kind of going like, oh, I have something here. I have like maybe this penchant to perform or something. And then when high school kind of, you get into your clubs and things like that in high school or your friend groups, and you can kind of realize those things a little more. I was doing like announcing like the basketball games, or I was doing like the morning announcements or something. Anything where it was like talking, I was all about. I'm like public speaking. I was not scared of it. I was good at it, and everyone else seemed afraid of it, and even adults were like impressed by that. So I was like, this is what I want to do. So that's why I thought radio, and then comedy radio, I thought was like right where I want to go, you know? And I never really thought like stand up was a thing that came very much later for me, like probably college even. Like I started like really diving into like Louis C.K. and Bill Burr and those guys, and they definitely had like an influence on my writing style. But it was like very late. And, you know, I even go back like now, and I would say probably like if I were to like peel back the onion, like probably like Richard Jeni and like Gary Shandling, those guys, when I go back and listen to them sort of as an adult, I go like, okay, so like those guys were in my brain as a kid, but I didn't even know it. Do you know what I mean? Like I saw them, but it didn't like register with me. But then I'm like remembering, I'm like, oh, because they definitely, there's been like Letterman too, like his old stand up, like for whatever reason, I kind of at one point through like learning about comedy, went back and watched those guys, and I go, that's the way to like talk on a stage or something like that, you know, like the way those guys were kind of just cool on stage. I wanted to be like them, where they were like kind of nonchalant, casual. They weren't too like, hey, you know, they were real like chill.
So I would think that your background in radio kind of prepares you for producing podcasts. Like, how did you get in with Tom to get behind the boards and do all that? I'm sure you fell back on all that.
I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I suck at all that shit, by the way. I used to make radio commercials. I mean, like that's the extent. And I had like, I can mix audio, especially for a podcast where it's two microphones and like a soundboard or something. So that was my expertise. And Tom has guys that are literally production wizards. So, I mean, I think I showed them how to like mix audio once, and they're like, it was like teaching a professional dancer like one move, you know what I mean? And then they're like, okay, got it. And then, I mean, I just was, I mean, even in radio, I was a content guy. Like I was coming up with segments, I was coming up with games or prepping interviews and stuff like that. So Tom brought me more in for that kind of thing than it was for technical stuff. Like I was lending a hand technically where I could, but I mean, I was worthless when it comes to that. I mean, look at me now. I mean, I can't believe I have a studio with, thank God for Sickler for bringing me, because I wouldn't know shit. I wouldn't know how to do any of that shit. So
Shout out to Ryan.
cameras. Yeah, shout out to Ryan for sure. Cameras and editing film stuff, I lost. And radio kind of hindered me on that, because also radio companies don't like to upgrade their software or their equipment. So I was working on shit from like shit that was there before I got there. I was still working on or using when I left, and they probably still have it. So I was kind of hindered in that regard. I remember mixing audio on my old software, like Adobe 1.5, in like Nadav at Tom's studio. Was like, you know, there's like been 17 versions of this since then, right? You know? And I'm like, I know, but I don't know the new versions, and I've never seen them before, so I'm lost, you know? So I'm faster with this old one, which is like a handicap, you know?
Yeah, I do the same thing with audio. I'm on Pro Tools 10. I think, I don't know, 20's out now. I'm like, nope, I know how to work all this stuff. I'm not leaving
Right.
it until it breaks.
Yeah, mine just broke, my computer that had Adobe 1.5 on it, and I'm like, will I ever get Adobe 1.5 back?
See, I had a computer crash, and I had to find an old used computer that would run the old I had to find the newest old computer, which is probably 5 years old at the time. I should probably start looking for another one of those just in case. But yeah, because past this 1 year of computer, all of my audio shit is done, worthless.
Yeah, it's scary, right? Because it's like it was like a tangible talent that I had, where I was like, you know, making commercials all the time. I was making radio theater. So I used to like pride myself on my ability of making like these like film scores, almost like of audio theater. And you know, I can't do that shit on the new stuff. I have no fucking, I'm lost, and I feel like an old man.
You have to go to YouTube every 2 seconds and
Yeah.
How do I
And
do
it's so
this?
weird. It's the same thing. And you're like, I want to do the same thing I did on this one, but they're like, we got rid of that. We don't have that tool anymore. You're like, why?
We put that tool in a whole different spot.
yeah. It's so wild. So,
And now it's
I mean,
also,
I guess I could learn, but I'm dumb. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna have to learn. When my computer dies, I'll have to learn. But now everything's subscription based too. You can't just buy a system and have it. At least Pro Tools now and Premiere Pro, all that stuff. Like every year, you just pay $600 or whatever to get, instead of just being able to buy it for $1,000 and have it until your computer blows up. So they figured it out. It's smart, but hang on.
Yeah, it's wild. But that's how, I mean, I don't really know why or what made Tom sort of pluck me out of the, I was doing that office job or whatever. And he's like, I'm building a studio. Do you want to like work there? And I mean, God bless him for doing it and for bringing me in, because it's given me a life. But I think I think he realized kind of quickly where he was like, oh wait, Josh doesn't know how to do this. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the other shit, like I was like, I'll learn how to edit, but I mean, I'm so light years behind everybody else. It's like, but thankfully I was able to launch my own podcast out of that whole deal. So here I am now, and I could sustain a living thanks to him and everybody that was over there. But I mean, there was no like producer future for me when it comes to that, for sure.
Yeah, that's where I found you, is through YMH, the YMH family. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I knocked it out of the park as far as my like on air stuff, but I was really worthless when it came to behind the scenes shit. So like tremendously.
Well,
Yeah.
he
Like I
probably
was just like that.
I mean, I set up the ring light and stuff.
Well, that's true. Well, I mean, I'm sure Tom had an inkling from going out on tour that number one, he liked you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then it's probably like, yeah, he can help around. If we need to move a table or something, we'll figure out something to do because you're a funny guy. So
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure he knew there was going to be use at some point.
Yeah, I don't know what his vision. I mean, he didn't ever express his like real vision. I mean, like he would say things like, we'll do some segments in here and there. And I would always like, anytime he like threw an segment idea at me, I feel like I did it well. Maybe, I don't know if he would have wanted me to be more. I was trying not to like, because it is such a show that people love and revere. I was new to it and I didn't want to like overstep a lot. You know what I mean? I didn't want to like act like a mic hog or whatever, or like try and put myself to the forefront in any capacity, because it wasn't my show. I was just welcomed onto it. And that's kind of how I've been my whole career. So I knew how to navigate those waters because I was always on someone else's show, And so I'm kind of like water in that regard. Like I work well with other people, especially if I know the show or if I get along with them. So it was kind of like, when he would throw a segment idea at me, I would just make sure I hit it out of the park. And when I pitched one, I would make sure that it was like kind of in line with what they had going on, So I think I did well. I'm happy to be doing my own show now and everything like that. But I wish I could have contributed more. Like, I think I could have done some more stuff on there, but it was sort of like spread your wings and fly. So that was kind of, thrown at me. But doing my own show is an experience that I've never experienced in my entire life. So now I can do whatever I want, and it's almost like weird. Do you know what I mean? Like I have to find my people that were like a me that can kind of help be a catalyst for content,
Yeah, it's a trip. Just the whole, just comedy and podcast. I mean, obviously our favorite kind of podcast are the comedy ones, and you guys are uniquely talented to do, or a lot of you are uniquely talented for the task because you can sit and talk and be funny and it's entertaining. But the whole, I don't know, I guess for you might have been different, but the whole transitioning from, well, I can do stand up, but there's this whole avenue to make some money doing podcasts, and just watching people figure it out and doing that. It's almost like new bands starting up and everybody's slightly different take on, rock and roll or whatever. It's fun to watch what comedians come up with to differentiate their podcast from just sitting around and,
you're creating your own show. Nobody can tell you what to do,
Yeah, it's amazing. There's no corporate overlords, but like I looked at comics back when I guess to answer your other question about like if anyone influenced me, I just kind of registered like guys like Jim Norton and Artie Lang who were on the radio, but doing like, you know, you'd always hear them. They're like, I'm going to be at the Funny Bone this weekend or whatever. They were comics that were on the radio. I was like, oh, that's what I can do from here in Buffalo. And I was. And then when podcasts became a thing, it was like some comics would be like, oh, it's hard to sit behind a microphone alone and just talk. I was like, I did that for like 4 hours a day. I mean, like it was, yeah, I was playing music. Like at one point I was on the morning show with like a group of guys, but then also I was doing the night show by myself. So I was on from like 7 till midnight by myself. And then I'd be on the morning show from 6 to 10 a.m. And it was crazy, but it was like, yeah, I can talk for a while to myself in an empty room, you know, to the walls or whatever. And other comics were like, oh, I need a crowd or I need someone to bounce off of or whatever. And I was like, I don't think I require those things, but now I'm learning that it's like just more fun. Like sometimes it gets lonely doing a show where you're just staring into a camera and talking, you know, but it is a fun muscle to flex.
And it's a skill set not every comic has, because there's very few of them out there that can sit, you know, Bill Burr does it, but Tim Dillon, but he's even got Ben sitting there. Mm-hmm. It's just very few people that can sit in front of a camera and rant for a long period of time and not look uncomfortable, have long pauses and kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to know that I can do that, but it's exhausting. Like there'll be an episode where I'll do that and then I'm like, I need a guest next week. You know what I mean? Like I'll say to myself, but it's a weird mood thing. Like, and also it's doing radio, you do it every day. And so, you know, after a couple of weeks, you're just kind of in the groove, whereas doing a podcast, it's once a week. And so I feel like it's taking me longer to, you know, get in the pocket and to like get comfortable in my own skin. Maybe not necessarily on camera or on mic, but like in just my own, what I know is a winner, what I know is like a good story to do or whatever. I'm still trying to like get comfortable, I feel like.
We definitely should touch on another one of your occupations as a sex worker before we get out of here. Explain.
For sure. What do you want to know?
Who was when you were a kid? Who was the first sex worker that you looked up to?
Jenna Jameson, probably. No, he was probably the first porn star I was aware of. But no, I mean, you know, obviously it's a ridiculous joke that has gone way too far.
For the people, let's set it up for the people that haven't heard this yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember how exactly.
I don't either.
Started. I'm trying to think to like the origin of it, but I just started like
maybe like Cameo or something. Like,
well, I mean, that was the catalyst for making it like an actual.
It had to be from your mom's house, right?
Well, it was from your mom's house. It was like I said something like I don't know. I was pro sex worker or like, and then Tom would make jokes about like me doing a porno or whatever, and I would just lie and I would be like, yeah, no, I'm a sex worker. I'm a whatever. And then Cameo came a knocking. And what happens is when you hit like a certain threshold on Instagram followers, they start like knocking at your door a little bit. And I always thought it was like kind of gross. I'm like, I don't know, what am I going to be like, happy birthday and shit. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this as a joke. I'll make some money doing it. And I'll make a joke out of it where like, and then they'll throw me off because there's no way that they'll allow me to act this way on their platform, you know? And what I was doing was I have very hairy shoulders and I was like pretending like that was a fetish. And I was like, get your shoulder hair porn from my Cameo. And that's like my OnlyFans. And so I would sit there shirtless and do like say wild, you know, they would be like, it's my friend Jeff's birthday. Can you say some fucked up shit or whatever? So I would. And, you know, people got the joke. Everyone got the joke, by the way. Like all of the, like, there have been a lot of people who have bought these and everyone has gotten the joke. There's never been one where they were like actually cranking it to my like shoulder hair or whatever. You know, people always ask that. And I'm like, no one actually was getting off to this. It wasn't like anyone was using it as actual pornography.
Right.
So everyone got the joke, and Cameo loved it. They were like, great job. And I was like, no, you're supposed to get like mad and kick me off. And then that's supposed to be like a story in itself. But no, they're like, you want to get back in? And And I'm like, no, not really. I don't. During the pandemic, when it became like my only lane for a second there, I was like, this is soul sucking. I'm like, this joke, I'm sick of this joke. And I'm sitting here with my shirt off. I feel like a fucking circus pony. So I just kind of stopped doing it. But it was my own, grave that I dug for myself. I mean, it was a bit that I came up with that that was my own like burden that I put on myself. But I was happy when people stopped buying them.
Did you make some cash?
Yeah, I made some good cash. I mean, it helped me get through the pandemic. I won't lie. And like, that was part of it where I was like, well, you do what you got to do. But then, I started like, it's so funny. I started thinking of like my grandpa in heaven being like, he had to get through like the Great Depression, like by saving rubber bands or whatever the hell they did. And like, he's like, this is how you're getting
bored and dust.
Yeah. He was like a kid during the first pandemic. And then, now he's looking at how I get through this one. And he's like, good God, like.
I bet there was their own version of Cameo or OnlyFans, something ridiculous that they had to do.
What do you think they would do back then? I mean, I was thinking about it. Like, my grandma had PTSD from the Great Depression.
I think they would just have.
I know
like,
it.
They would
I
show
bet
a picture of a cake or something.
I
or
bet
some
they
food,
would go behind
protein.
a barn or something and be like, "I will show you my tits for 10 cents."
Oh, that would make sense. Like a live. I bet they had those like
Pretty
peep
tame.
shows too, where the thing would come down.
Yeah.
So maybe they had something like that.
Maybe for the higher tiers, it could be that Grapes of Wrath shit where you can have mother's milk, to stay alive, because it is the Great Depression.
True that.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, I would like someone should do like how like OnlyFans had a huge surge during the pandemic. They should go back to 1918 and see what the version of OnlyFans was back then, and see like what people were doing to get by, in terms of like, how far they went.
It probably would fuck people for a piece of cardboard to eat.
Yeah,
it's probably the
right.
reality. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would. I mean, how you wonder how many people? Because everyone, that was like a big story. Everyone was up in arms. Like, can you believe how many girls are doing OnlyFans? And it's like, nah. I mean, I kind of can believe it, but at the same time, you go like, you wonder like how many people resorted to, like you just said, like sexual favors and things like that back in 1918 when they didn't have, the internet or whatever.
Yeah, I mean.
This bit's gotten even more funny. That's hilarious.
Morality goes out the window.
I actually was sitting here going like, that's interesting and like kind of funny, but then I was like, no, that's dark. See, that's where I have to like.
Yeah, but see, morality goes out the window when your kids are starving. Yeah.
I don't even consider it immoral. I was like, I was thinking of like, hey, get it. You know what I mean? Like whatever helps out. I was like wondering how many people like, because there was such a morality thing back then.
But there probably weren't condoms, so everybody was.
They were just made out of like lamb skin,
sheep skin or whatever. Yeah.
I
like the lamb skin now.
How do you say?
What's wrong with that?
How do you say?
What's wrong with lamb skin? I'm confused.
How do you say you go?
I've never
18.
You go, girl.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, somebody
Yas Queen in 1918.
You move, broad.
Yeah, maybe it was Yas Queen in 1918.
Yes.
I want a documentary about the first pandemic and all the crazy shit. That's something that someone should do for sure.
If nothing less,
those masks are
a mockumentary.
Oh, those masks! Oh my God! There was a band that had that mask on their album cover, and I never knew what it was until the pandemic came back, and then I'm like, oh my God, that's what that mask is. I can't remember what band.
What band was that? I don't know.
It was like a dancey emo band in like the mid 2000s. God, I mean, I have it in my Spotify, I'm sure, but it was like a red album, and they had the masks on, and I feel like they wore them on stage.
Somebody's screaming at us right now.
Wait, I know who you're. Yeah, wait, hold on.
Well,
I don't know. We don't have to Google it.
Ask him another question.
I can't fucking remember. It's like the somethings.
Yeah, you're not gonna be. What are you gonna look up?
Well, we'll see if this works.
Yeah, let's see what your search is. Jamie, pull it up.
I want to say it starts with an S. And I can't even. I'm using my phone to look.
Yeah, she's never gonna find it.
Slipknot, maybe? No.
No, I mean Slipknot had masks, but different story.
Because they have masks.
Yeah, they were a big one for me back in my high school days for sure.
Yeah, their original
And
drummers.
it's so wild. Get this. I know it's so sad, but I was like, oh yeah, so sad. I was about to move on to a happy story. Of
I'll just
my
go
life.
happy. Yeah.
So wild. Right before pandemic, Corey Taylor came to. Well, I was opening for Tom. He came to Tom's shows, but I got to meet him afterwards. He like watched me perform, which is
That
crazy.
must be cool.
Yeah, it was so wild. Like a guy that you grow up going to his concerts and listening to his albums and stuff, and then he's in the audience watching me perform. Just, I mean, he came to see Tom, but I would happen to perform there too. Yeah. But so wild, and he knew me from Your Mom's House. He actually bought, well, his wife or girlfriend bought him a sex work from me for Christmas, and she said, she goes, "You're not going to believe this is for Corey Taylor." And I was like, "Is this really for?" And then she sent me his reaction video. We played it on Your Mom's House, him watching my sex work. So wild little turnabout there. I turned that mask odyssey into something, into a story.
We've gone from 1918 rape to Corey Taylor being a good guy.
Okay, well,
but yeah, that was a wild story.
I wanted to ask. Me think. I had something else. Well, I had something else, but if it comes back to me, I'll ask you. But when's the first time that you remember hearing about Papa Willie, and what is your own Willie Nelson experience?
I would say, well, I have like a picture of me and Austin. I think, what's the theater? It's not the Secret, or is it? The Moody Theater, maybe?
Yeah, Moody Theater.
There's like a balcony in the green room, and there's like it's almost a cardboard. It's not really a cardboard cutout, but it's like the over your right shoulder there. The little like they have one like that on the balcony. So I have like a bunch of pictures because I got to perform at that place. So I would just take pictures with like your grandpa, basically.
Yeah.
And I'd have a joint and stuff like that. But my first memories are probably just like, because of my age and things like that. You'd hear the music, obviously, but then, obviously the pop culture stuff with the weed. And then when I started smoking weed, you were like, oh yeah, like this was like another Snoop, like it was like him and Snoop Dogg were like, when you first started. And it was kind of like, I met Jay Chandrasekhar doing comedy, and he has like a Willie Nelson story in his act from when he directed Dukes of Hazzard, was it? And I said to him, I'm like, that's an awesome story, obviously. But when it comes to like jokes, like everyone pretty much knows where it's going. You know what I mean? Because it's like, let me guess, you got fucking super baked and Willie Nelson smoked you under the table. Like, is that how the story goes, Jay? He's like, it's like, there's not exactly a twist or turn at the end of it. I mean, we all know where it's headed, but yeah, I mean, I wasn't like a huge country music fan, but like I started getting into like the outlaw stuff as I got into like late high school and in college and things like that. Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, I loved Chris Christopherson, all that stuff. I just started like digging that. Highwayman is like unbelievable. And then I became like absolutely obsessed with like Glenn Campbell. And so I went down that wormhole. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, I became like this. And then I started, you listen to like Glenn Campbell Spotify or like Pandora or something like that. And then you discover other songs from those artists that I mentioned, prior, that you hadn't necessarily like opened up or gone down that wormhole. So it's fun that they have those things now,
For sure. Oh, we got it. We definitely got to ask about how is the apartment? Is it still clean?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going good. It's right here. You can see.
Wow.
I mean, my roommate's bike is in the kitchen, but it's we're fine. I can't wait to move out of here. I'm trying to move out ASAP.
Going to Austin?
Have my own place. No, I'm gonna live in Santa Monica.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm gonna stay here. Over by where our studio is. I'm trying to just move closer to it.
Oh yeah,
so, yeah. And I just have my own place. I'm sick of having it.
You just got there,
What's
right?
that?
So you're not anxious to leave right now, I wouldn't imagine.
No, I moved here, like I said, in end of 2017. So I kind of feel like I have unfinished business here. And so, I'm happy to be staying, and I'm noticing, like the headaches that are coming with, the transitions of moving and things like that. So I'm happy to let other people do that. You know, I'm just trying to get reacclimated into society. I don't need to like thrust another move onto myself at this point. So other than, you know, moving a couple miles away and getting my own place, like I said, I moved here and I just moved into this place just to have, you know, I mean, I was a road comic and like doing that office job, and now I can afford a place where I can live like an adult. So I'm ready for that to happen.
I can imagine.
And Santa Monica, I spent some time over there last week, and Santa Monica was nice, and you don't have to, it's nice you have a place that you can go to record, and you don't have to fly to Austin and do 4 in a row or something.
Right. That's the thing. And like, or live in Austin and fly back here and have to take a bunch and then fly back and forth.
Or
like
that, yeah.
Because that's kind of what's happening with a lot of people right now, is they're flying back and forth to LA because they haven't got things set up down there yet. And it just is all looks like a nightmare. And I'm glad that I can kind of forego that. And I'm happy that I can stay here and do this still. So
yeah,
Santa Monica it is.
I can't imagine.
You guys are you guys in Austin?
Nashville.
Oh, Nashville. Oh, I love Nashville. So dope.
I can imagine having to fly a bunch right now anyway. It's such a colossal pain in the ass.
The masks
and
suck.
just going back and forth once or twice a month. Whew, that would be rough.
Well, the other thing is like doing the road, like I'm already, like for instance, on Sunday, I have to fly to St. Louis, and then I fly back on Wednesday, and then on Friday, I fly to Tempe, or to Phoenix, I guess, and then go to Tempe. So it's like I'm doing the road already. I don't want to add, you know, back and forth to do the podcast on top of the fact that I have to like pop in and out of here to do that anyways, and then go do the road, you know? So it's like I'm already gone most of the time as it is. I don't want to like throw another travel aspect into that.
Yeah. How long's the flight from Austin to LA? We've done it once. I don't remember.
It's still probably 3 hours, isn't it? At least.
Yeah, 3.5, 4 hours, I want to say. Something like that.
It's not short.
Yeah.
It's a long way over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes not even direct either. So
Right. Well, last time we went, we were up in the air for like 20 minutes and they turned around, or maybe like 9 minutes.
The wheels would not go up under the plane, so I had to loop around. Although it was cool. It was the actual 4th of July. We just played your grandpa's picnic, and we were playing at the Whiskey, I think, the next day or two. But we flew out 4th of July, and right coming into Los Angeles, it was right the time when I guess everybody was illegally, but fireworks were going off everywhere. But you were looking down on them. It was fantastic.
That's cool. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, you ever do that where you go up on a roof or something around like LA or New York, and then you're just like, there can't be this many sanctioned fireworks shows happening right now. This is definitely. But yeah, no, that's a 4th of July is one of those flight days where I feel like anywhere you're landing, it's like it's almost like you're landing in a patriotic Fallujah, the way that it's like things are going off, you know, red, white, and blue bombs.
There's the title of this episode, Patriotic Fallujah.
And I live in a little redneck town, and it's like a week before 4th of July to a week after 4th of July, it's constant going off all night long. It's like you live in a war zone.
Oh yeah, I mean, I live in East Hollywood, so the whole month of July is the same thing, you know. And then sometimes you got to go like, was that a firework or was that something else? And I don't know, but that's you play that little game.
That's the game in East Nashville, fireworks or gunshots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh, thanks so much for doing this with us. You're awesome.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for sitting down.
Thank you so much for having me. It was the best. Thank you. I love talking to interesting people. So thank you for inviting me on.
And if you need to get to Nashville sometime soon.
Yeah, come to Nashville. Well, you should play Zanies.
Yeah, I did Zanies during the pandemic, actually, in November. So hopefully toward the end of the year here or the beginning of next year, I get to come back. So that'll be fun.
Perfect. Let us know what you do.
Yeah, we'll hook up when you're in town. Yeah.
Awesome, for sure.
Sweet.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, all right?
You too. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Josh Potter is my favorite comedian.
He is a funny dude. Yeah. Anyway, rate, review,
subscribe,
all that nonsense.
Tell your friends.
I know your mom's name.
Did we free Brittany yet?
Maybe. Enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.